Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me again on In His Will. And I have a little snippet here for you that was from October the 7th of 2nd, October 2nd of 1927. And in this little snippet, um, Jesus is telling Louisa um, a little bit about what the fall meant, or maybe even more so what the fall did not mean when Adam fell. And he said, in creating him, God had left nothing empty within him. Everything was divine fullness, as much as a creature could contain. And when he fell into sin, these acts, these riches of his, this glory and perfect love which he had given to his Creator, were not destroyed. On the contrary, it is by virtue of them and of his operating done in my divine fiat that he earned the redemption. No, one who has possessed the kingdom of my will, even for a short time, could not remain without redemption. One who possesses this kingdom enters into such bonds and rights with God that God Himself feels with him the strength of His own chains that bind him, and He cannot get rid of him. Now, in seeing him fallen into poverty, how could our love bear not having compassion on him? If our divine will itself lovingly waged war on us and pleaded for the one who had lived in it. Do you see then what living in my divine will means? Its great importance. It is in it there is fullness of all divine goods and totality of all possible and imaginable acts. If Adam deserved compassion, it was because the first period of his life was in the kingdom of the divine will. I thought this was really encouraging because God is basically telling Louisa, yes, he had more of the divine fullness that any creature could actually contain. He was overflowing with the fullness of God, with the fullness of his divinity. And when he fell into sin, um, everything that he had done or been had not been destroyed because once he had been bound to his creator, once they had been fused in the divine will, God could not totally turn his back on Adam. And he was saying in another uh, reading, he says, um, knowing that the gift of redemption was available to creatures, he still um, uh, would not let go completely of Adam because Adam deserved compassion. Because the first part of his life, he was in the kingdom of the divine will. And so um, I believe that, even though he had fallen into poverty, and when Jesus says falling into poverty, I don't think he meant fallen into poverty in fact that, like that he was starving. Of course, he was uh, didn't have the gift of the garden anymore. He had uh, lost some of his intimacy with God, but he said that one who possesses this kingdom enters into such bonds and rights with God that God himself feels with him the strength of his own chains that bind him, and he cannot get rid of him. God feels this connection with us, this bond with us, so completely, so tightly, so lovingly that this really gives us hope. It gives me hope that when we fall down, and Jesus tells us this over and over in the divine will, in the writings to Louisa, get back up again, try again. Um, at that point, God had given him the gift of the divine will, and it was his freely to have. But he decided, he was going to live in his own will, as I say, where self will run riot, and we have this propensity once we realize that we have a will, ask any 2-year-old, we like to use it and forget anybody else's concerns or desires. Our will is uh, dominant. And so God knew, even as He created all of this, that this gift of redemption was going to be available because God really couldn't really bear the idea uh, that we would be lost, that we wouldn't be connected with Him, and and so it gives me great hope to see, though. And He says He's seeing him fall into poverty. It was the poverty of not possessing the divine will. It was the poverty of not having the infused knowledge, and what came with that, that Adam gave up when he gave up his um, when he gave up the divine will and decided to live in his own will. And so, and of course, we're often asked, well, what about Eve? Um, Adam had a greater responsibility. Adam lived in the divine will. He was given the divine will, and so his knowledge. He said everything with divine fullness. He was everything. It was um, completely full of God, as much as any creature could contain. So he knew exactly what he had and what he was doing. So for us, um, we must remember, because sometimes, I always say, um, I'm a great sprinter, but this life is, geez, it's a marathon, and we may not be as good at marathons. We might be good sprinters for a little bit, but then we have the marathon. And this is a marathon, and we live with this gift of the divine will, building and building and building on our complete in, uh, fusion with God in the divine will. And this really gives me hope that even Adam wasn't completely forgotten by God. Certainly, God still felt this very strong love, complete love, and was having compassion on him. He was sad. He was sorry that Adam had done this, but he left the possibility of redemption for everyone because he wanted there to be a second chance, another way. And so we must remember what a tremendous gift this is that we have in the divine will, and that um, we can live in virtue, in holiness, in sanctity. This is where uh, the divine will is leading us. It's the sanctification, it's the era of sanctification. And so, as we fuse ourselves more and more with the divine will and act in the divine will and make reparation for what is past, present, and future that's been done against God, we become more and more possessed by the divine will. We become more and more um, completely full of the divine will. And this is our goal, to live in fullness with the divine will, to live in the fourth degree, that we are always acting in um, the person of Jesus in all of our acts. And we can do that by living in the divine will. I hope that you will uh, comment on the snippets, and I know that many of you have commented and liked the snippets. I also wanted to mention that this Thursday, um, today is the 16th, 16th, 17th, I guess October the 19th, then on Thursday evening on In His Will, we will have Daniel O'Connor, and he'll be talking about his new book, Only Man Bears His Image. And it's always very exciting when we have a chance to chat with Daniel. He's one of my favorite people. He's just such a gift to all of us as we live and learn in the divine will. And of course, tomorrow night we'll have another teaching on courage by Father Celso. This is an ongoing series that we're doing. And you'll be able to see him on Tuesdays, and he will continue his teachings on courage. And so I hope you'll stay tuned, and we'll have another snippet very soon, possibly maybe Friday. As we read and grow together, I love doing this. And there is information on my email. If any of you would like to join my online CENACLE, where we study the writings of Louisa in a small group and talk about them and sort of glean all of the treasures, as I call it, digging for treasure, as we dig for treasure in these writings. Please just go ahead and write me uh, at my email, and I'd be happy to send you the link. We meet on Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then other mornings, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we meet at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So a couple of different times. We may start up another evening group if more people are interested in the evening. But I hope that will consider that if you're not already involved in some kind of teaching Senegal, because I think learning together is helpful. Although we should be reading our from the writings every single day, and hopefully from Scripture also every single day, because we I always say it's like a car. If you buy a new car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. When you start to study the divine will and you realize what the divine will is, you start to see it all over the place, all over Scripture. Uh, as we listen to Scripture, both Old and New Testament, we hear about the divine will. We hear about it from writings of the saints, that this is something that God had always intended for us, was to live in His will, but He waited uh, until this era of sanctity, these 2,000 years that we've entered into, to uh, give us this beautiful, as Daniel calls it, the crown of sanctity. So God bless you. I hope to see you again next time, and continue to live in His will.